Welcome to our mini class tonight. We are going to be speaking specifically about one aspect of fiber structure that is really important for iridologists to know. If you're watching this on the replay, I would encourage you to please do me a favor. That would be to like the video, drop a comment, share it with a friend, and subscribe to my channel. I know that's four favors I'm asking you to do, but I would love it if you would do that. I'd really appreciate it because it makes these videos so much more visible to a wider audience. And that's a good thing, right? So as we're talking about fiber structure tonight, I want to just kind of land on this first, and that is fiber structure is not sexy. Yeah. Everybody wants to see the other kinds of things like the lacunae and the pigments and the overall color and the constitutional subtypes, but no one wants to talk about fiber. And that's very sad because fiber gives us valuable information about things when we need it, right? So let's just start really quick with what one of my graduates said. I asked her what benefit has learning constitutional iridology been in her business? She is a digestive health specialist. She said it's been a great asset to me in my office, specializing in digestive health. Iridology underscores the answers that I get from digestive testing and takes things to another dimension and a deeper level. Plus, people who've never heard of iridology are very curious about their genetic predispositions. So if you don't know iridology yet, or if you are looking to upgrade your skills to constitutional iridology, maybe on your way to becoming a certified iridologist with the International Iridology Practitioners Association, listen to what Karen says. Her message is brilliant. All right. We need to know a little bit about eye anatomy. Now, I got to tell you, sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake here. When I saw diagrams like this way back when I was a very young iridologist, I had no idea what they were about. It took me until I was actually teaching to go, oh, now I get it. You ever have those wake up moments like that? The light bulb really just goes boo, and you've got like 10,000 watts. You go, oh, now I'm enlightened. Well, that's what this was for me. So when we are looking at an iris, we, of course, it's a donut shape, right? It's round and it's got the pupil in the middle. But here, what we're looking at is fiber. And so we want to actually look at it end on. So if we've got our donut and we cut it, and then we rotate it down and we look at this cut edge, that's what we're looking at here. The pupil would be sitting right here. Then we've got the iris, then we've got the sclera. So here again, we're looking at that cut edge, just one end of that cut edge. Another way to think of it is you've got a bagel and you cut the bagel in half so that you've got two C shapes. Then you're going to look at one of those ends of the bagel, one of those ends of the C shape. I hope that all makes sense. So when we are looking at this, what we want to be aware of is the fiber structure we are looking at is between the anterior border layer and the posterior epithelium, right? So it's this stuff in here, which is made up of nerves and different kinds of structural fibers, including trabeculae, which has a large component of that is capillaries that are coated with collagen. And it's those capillaries that make the visible fibers that we see. All right, so beyond that, we're going to try to keep things a little easier, right? So when we're looking at eyes, these are the trabeculae. Is that a word that you're familiar with? If you've heard trabeculae before, just say yes in the chat box. Let me know that trabeculae or trabecula for the singular is a word that you've heard before. Yeah, Vanessa's got it. Fantastic. Okay, so we're looking at these fiber structure, these fibers, which are a part of the trabecular structure. These again are capillaries that are coated with collagen. And notice in this eye, well, in both of these eyes, because these are the same person, and usually the eyes will be relatively similar, the fibers predominantly radiate outwards. They look very nice and neat and organized. Do you agree that they look kind of just pretty, like someone spent time organizing those fibers? Yeah, if you agree with that, that these fibers look pretty neat and pretty organized, give me an I agree in the chat box. I just need to make sure that you're staying with me here. Okay, perfection. Yes, yes, yes. So good, so good. But sometimes fibers didn't get the message that they are supposed to be radiating outwards. And when they are not radiating outwards, they can be skittering across other fibers. This is a really good example. This one little fiber, you can see how it's crossing over several other fibers to get to where it wants to be. We've got, that one's maybe not quite one. What do we have in the left eye? Oh, here we've got a good one, right? So sometimes we've got fibers that didn't get the memo, right? They're just doing their own thing, going off in a weird direction. And that is the genetic programming, right? That fiber has not moved to that location. This person didn't do anything to put that fiber over there. This is all genetically encoded. This is what this person was blessed with from parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, right? So we're not going to do anything to move this fiber anywhere else. It's there. It's just there. And we're going to be happy with it being there because we can't do anything about its location. Then sometimes we get eyes like this, where we've got a lot of fibers that are doing their own thing. They're not radiating out nicely. So we've got some here that are crossing over others. We've got lots of little meshy bits down here. And that was meshy, not messy. Meshy, M-E-S-H-Y. Got lots of little tail enders down here that are crossing over. Lots in here, lots in here. So we've got a lot of these fibers that are skittering across other fibers. Now that is what we would call a transversal. So it is still a trabecula, but we can add transversal to its title here. These again are always inherited. And so we need to be asking the personal and family history questions, but especially here, the family history questions, right? These are important because they suggest a predisposition towards inflammation, scar tissue, and blockages. So we've got to have a conversation with the client. They're not a guarantee of problems. They are simply an indication of an inherent predisposition. So depending on where these are situated, diet and lifestyle might help to prevent problems in the future, or might help to reverse problems the client is having right now. Now, there's many different types of transversals, and they each mean a little bit different. Each of them has their own personality. And we aren't going to take time to dive deep into all of them tonight. If you have done iridology training, you've probably learned about them, right? And if you haven't done iridology training, then we'll have a chat. Sometimes when we see these, we might see early symptoms of arthritis or advanced arthritis, depending on the age of the client and how the client is taking care of him or herself. Remember that this is only one piece of information, right? Here we have a lymphatic eye that is very over acid, almost nudging up towards febrile, almost. And that gives us information as well that this person is likely prone to inflammatory processes, excess acid, excess mucus in the tissue. So if we have fibers running off across other fibers, and if this suggests an increased risk of inflammation and pain and mucus or acid levels in those areas, then we know that we've got two layers there, right? We've got the acid predisposition plus the pain and inflammation predisposition, which of course is increasing this person's chance of having, or their risk of having, an arthritis type of situation. Is that making sense? If it is, give me a makes sense in the comments box. Excellent, excellent. Vanessa says it's making sense. That is so good, so good. So I want to bring this up because this is the eye of a 4-year-old girl. She was born, she's an IVF baby. And alongside IVF, we did a whole lot of herbs to help with that pregnancy. She is very loved, very well nurtured, and she's about 10 years old now. And she's one of the sweetest young ladies I've ever met. She's polite. She has a sense of humor. She can carry on a conversation with an adult. I mean, she's not spoiled stink rotten, right? Sometimes only children and only children who are IVF babies get spoiled way beyond, right? But she's not. She's just a really sweet, talented, smart young lady. Now, when we look at her fiber structure, we can see that she's got a lot of these fibers running sideways right in here. She also has a lymphatic iris with lots of that acid predisposition and a tiny touch leaning into some of the uric acid predisposition. So when we see these kinds of transversals here, this is where we need to work on 2 levels. We need to work on the global level of her whole system wants to be over acid. What do we do with that? How do we coach for nutrition? What kinds of supplements might be beneficial to use, off and on for the rest of her life? And then we need to think about what other organ systems would be involved in mitigating or balancing out that acid. Do any of those organs need support? And then we want to be looking at this. So when we look at these, then we are going to ask about personal and family history. Again, here it's going to be, for the fibers themselves, it'll be more about family history. The rest of this acid predisposition, personal and family history will give us information. Is this making sense about where we ask what kinds of questions and why? If it is, give me questions in the comments box. Perfect, perfect. All right, so with this young lady then, we're looking at her left eye. And when we look at her left eye right in here, and I'm using a constitutional map, you'll notice that this is not the super cluttered allopathic map that many people use. We've actually got areas that don't have anything in them. Those would be areas that do not affect the metabolism of the body, right? We are working with the organs and organ systems that affect the metabolism of the body. And so we're not going to be working too much with like earlobe and arm and hand and knee and foot, because they typically they don't regulate metabolism or contribute to it, but they certainly can show symptoms. So when we look at this left iris and we see this is all coming down through the liver area. So if these trabeculae, if these transversals are suggesting an increased risk of inflammation, acid, blockage, and it's in the liver area, what kinds of symptoms might we see as she gets older? Like when she becomes an adult? What kinds of things does the liver do? And how could those fibers give us a warning of what we should be recommending for care? What do you think? What kinds of symptoms might we see for a liver that might want to be inflamed or congested or have blockages? And then what kinds of recommendations might we want to be doing with this young lady for the long term? So the liver does detox. We might see acidity. How would acidity show up in the liver? Or would the acidity be showing up somewhere else because the liver was cranky? Digestion issues. What specifically about digestion? How is the liver involved with that? Right, so I'm just playing off the comments that are coming in the chat box. Now, this is where we need our anatomy and physiology, right? And we need to be detectives, and we need to connect symptoms to iris signs. And we need to connect often a daisy chain of iris signs to understand the symptom. When we are working preventively, as we would be with a child this young, we need the family history, and then we need to be connecting iris signs, family symptoms with our understanding of anatomy and physiology to come up with the right kinds of questions and the right kinds of preventive recommendations. Right? These are things that many iridology teachers don't teach. It's the kind of thought process that I spend a lot of time working with my students on to get them to start connecting dots. Can't detox could be low energy and skin issues. Yeah, it could be. It could be if she's not detoxing well. Yeah, it could be. Low energy and skin issues can be from a lot of other things too, right? Right, Jennifer? And so again, oops, I did not mean to do that. And then, so we want to be very clear about why we're asking these things, right? Okay, well, I mean, the liver does 500 different jobs, literally 500 different jobs. And so it can affect absolutely anything it wants. And we need to understand how it would affect those things, right? Here's another beautiful example. This was a teenage girl. She was about 16 when we took this photo. Actually, we did all of her photos. And as we look at her eyes, we can see that we have, again, transversals. This is her right eye. And when we look at the transversal, the big one, she's got lots of little ones that fall into specific categories, but the biggest one is right down here. So that would be between about 35 minutes and 40 minutes, which puts us again into liver, but also nudging into the ovary area. Okay, so this again gives us one layer of information that the liver and the ovary, specifically the right ovary, may end up with some inflammation, some pain, some blockages, some acid imbalance in them. And so we want to think, okay, lymphatic eye, liver and ovary may want to be impacted. Notice the other colors in the iris. Notice what's happening in the nutritive zone, and what's happening makes it sound like it changes. It doesn't. Notice, let me rephrase that. Notice what we can observe in the nutritive zone that teaches us about stomach integrity, protein digestion, right? And so as we look at that and we see, oh, she may not be able to digest proteins well, we need to ask, does she handle proteins well? And there's various ways to ask that question where it will make sense and where you'll get the information you're looking for, right? And when we've got that information and we know that she's maybe not digesting proteins very well, then we understand why she's got so much white in her eye. The predisposition to be high acid is going to be aggravated by the stomach not digesting well. And all of that will contribute to inflammation and pain and blockages and acid imbalance in other tissues. And specifically have a stronger impact in areas where we've got fibers that are transversals. Right, so we layer up the information. We never look at just one marking and go, oh, that tells us everything we need to know. Right? Is this making sense? That we need more than one marking. We can start with a marking, but then we need to ask about other things that connect to it in a logical sequence. Is that making sense? If it is, give me a make sense in the comments box. Yeah, layer the information. Absolutely, Vanessa, so important. This is another one of my students, Sophia Perez-Villar. I believe she's in Ireland. I asked her, she posted this actually on the International Iridology Practitioners Association website, where students who are members of IIPA can leave comments about instructors. And this is what she said about my course. The commitment that Judith has for teaching is extraordinary, and the amount of support you get from the iridology course is fabulous. The material is very clear and thorough. The pace of the course is dynamic, but with enough time to integrate all the parts. As this was my second iridology course, I was not sure if the course would be an add-on, but it has exceeded my expectations. I've learned lots from the course material and classes, expanded previous knowledge, and gained more confidence. I can see now how this course has helped me to get better answers from my clients and design an effective protocol in very little time. Highly recommended for beginners and advanced. She is, I want to say, medical herbalist in Ireland. So she came in well trained. I was thrilled that I was able to add to her knowledge base and her confidence level. Now, just a quick introduction about me, and then we're going to get back to some eyes. I've been in holistic healing now for 45 years. Yeah, that's a long time. It's well over half my life, well over. And when I got into it, I got it because I was not well. I had some problems, and the medical world couldn't solve them. The medical world kept humming and hawing, and they weren't quite sure what to do with me. And that was when I met a young man who knew a bit about herbs, and his mom knew a bit more. And I really liked this guy. He was really kind of a hunk. And so as we were dating, his mother started teaching me about herbs and helping me with what I could be doing. And golly, I fell in love with the guy. Wow. And we got married. And then it became the right thing to do to study this. This stuff intrigued me so much that his mom was an iridologist as well. And so she started teaching me that as well. And so I just kind of built from there. After a year or two, I needed to be out on my own doing this. And so I looked for other herbal teachers, other nutrition teachers. And in 1993, I was very blessed to connect with Bill Caradonna, who was one of the founders of what is now the IIPA. And he taught me constitutional iridology. Over the decades that I've been involved with this, I have designed and taught many different courses to do with herbalism, nutrition, pregnancy, iridology, biokinesiology, and I've written books for every one of them. Every book is out of print now except for the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System textbook, which is available to my students. So I am now one of 10 level 3 certified iridology instructors through IPA in the world. I was one of the first 3, and it was pretty exciting to be there. And so it's great to be in that elite group, right? I really love teaching, and I really loved doing this work clinically as well. I am also a professional member of 2 nutrition organizations here in Canada and of the Alberta Herbalist Association. All right. I'm just going to throw this out there that the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System program is the only live online fully mentored iridology course for anyone who's got a college level anatomy and physiology course under their belt already. So herbalist, nutritionist, naturopath, RMT, who else have I've had dental hygienists come through the program, EMTs come through the program, physical therapists. I've had people from lots of different trainings come through to learn holistic and comprehensive and dynamic and constitutional iridology. The reason we want to learn this as practitioners is because most of us, without a really good assessment tool, spend far too much time gathering too much information from our clients. And then we spend even more time, usually unpaid, when the client's not with us, creating protocols, right? And that's not the way it should be. It should be that you can gather the information you need while you're with your client because you've got the right assessment tools. And then you should be able to create the program that they need for now that will take them the next 4 or 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, to implement and really work on, and get all this done during your paid time with them. It's so important that we not be, I'm going to be really, really harsh here, that we not be wasting our own time creating protocols in time that we're not being paid for. Do you know any other profession that willingly gives away 2 or 3 or 4 hours of time for every 1 hour they're paid for? It's not a very good way to build a business, not a very good way to earn a living, right? And so that's why in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System program, I teach you how to do the assessments quickly and succinctly and with laser focus, pulling out all the bits and pieces that you need to from that eye, asking all the right questions based on your client's needs, so you can get your work done during your paid time. Right. The Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course is comprised of 20, about 2.25 hour live interactive web classes, 1 per week. And it includes bonuses. You get recordings of every class session, mini recordings of every topic we discuss. The textbook is 225 pages and it's downloadable. You've got cheat sheets or study notes, downloadable. There's a quiz for each of the 20 modules to test how well you're assimilating the information. We have 2 extra group mentoring sessions every month that are open to my students and my graduates. We have mentoring for certification preparation for up to 10 months after you complete your classes. That's where you get a little extra one-on-one attention to get you ready for the IPA exam. And when you've completed all of the quizzes with scores of 100%, within 30 days of your final class, you also receive a certificate of attendance. Right? This is all critical because my goal in teaching iridology, as you can tell from what we've done with eyes so far tonight, is not just to teach you what the markings are. Can you name this marking? That's nice. But why do you need to know it? How does that marking fit into an iris assessment? When is that marking important? What questions do you need to ask when you see that? Right? And what questions do you need to ask that connect the symptoms to the marking, to the daisy chain of markings, to get to where you need to go with this client? And that is exactly what we spend so much time teaching and working on in the course. So important. All right. How many of you already practice iridology? Let me know in the chat box if you already practice iridology. Okay, so Vanessa practices on her friends and family, but not paid. Okay, fair enough. All right, what do you think about brown eyes? Do you feel like you can see what you need to see in a brown eye? Or do you feel like they're hard to work with? And I ask that because statistics show that about 55% of the population of the world have brown eyes. Ciliary zone fibers are not easy to see. Yeah, they can be difficult to see. And that's one of the trademarks of a true hematogenic or brown eye. And so when we are working with a brown eye, we're not going to see transversals because of the pigment density. Right. And so we need to then be looking for other things that we see in a hematogenic eye. And this is kind of a little side trip here. You know, things like, do we have lacunae? Do we have radial furrows? Do we have separations in the fiber that are letting us see what's down below? That's one layer down. Do we have defect signs? Do we have contraction furrows? Is there a lipemic diathesis? Sometimes you'll see extra pigment in a brown eye. That gives you a ton of information. Right? And certainly there's all of the things we can look for in the nutritive zone as well that can give us more information. So while we may not see individual fibers well in a true brown eye, there is a lot of information if we just take the time to see what's there rather than going, oh, it's another brown eye. Right? When we have a biliary eye, we sometimes in these eyes have enough pigment to hide some of the fiber, but we will always see some fiber in a biliary eye. And so we can often see transversals in a biliary eye. We've got one down here that is just crossing over. We've got this little one right along here as well. So we've got those transversals. And again, sometimes you'll see a lot of lacunae in a biliary eye, sometimes you won't. And you simply need to start looking at the layers of information based on the symptoms the client has presented. So important to not be just pulling eye signs literally off the iris and making up stories about what they mean. You always want to have context, right? And so as we look at this, again, this is a right iris. This area over here is down, especially down in here, this is liver area. Got a little bit of a defect mark sitting right there, a little bit of one here with these fibers running across. And so this is telling us liver may want to be a bit of a challenge. We've also got a lot of liver pigmentation, saying liver may want to be a bit of a challenge, right? Liver may want to stress things out. And so again, we need to know, what does the client want help with before we start saying, oh, we need to do a liver cleanse, we need to blah, 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 blah. Maybe this person's already taking care of our liver. Maybe liver is not something we need to worry about, even though we've got markings there. This is Danielle Mathieu. She is a naturopath in Quebec, Canada, and a reflexologist. So I asked her, why did you take my course and how has it helped you? She said, I completed my first iridology course several years ago. Since that time, I was looking for a teacher who could take me deeper into my knowledge and who would be available to his students and happy to be so, with whom it would be easy to exchange ideas, to feel comfortable asking questions, who would not fear different points of view, and who would be ready to take up the challenge of explaining their own. In short, the rare pearl. During these years, I took several mini classes with several teachers, but I could never decide to take a full course with any of them. There was always that little something missing that made me feel like I was, that made me feel, what she meant here was, but I was not in the right place with the right person. The moment I started talking with Judith, I immediately felt comfortable with her. Even though I had had no contact with her before, her welcome, her openness, and her professionalism made me feel that she was the teacher I'd been looking for all this time. All the fears I previously felt about the other teachers vanished immediately. I felt no hesitation in getting involved with her. I have never regretted my choice, and my expectations were met far beyond what I expected from a teacher. She knows how to transmit to us the taste for excellence, and above all, she knows how to support us and train us to become the truly competent iridologists. Now, her first language is French, and so she wrote it in French and then used an online translator, and we tried to catch the interesting little bits of grammar in there. She did a beautiful job. I really appreciated her story. So with this, I'm going to drop this concept out to you, and that is, I've had iridologists come through my program who were already IPA certified. They were listed on the IPA website. They'd already passed the test. Why did they come into my course? They came in because they had learned markings, but they had not learned how to integrate their iridology with what they do. And so they felt very insecure using iridology. And they literally, I had one student who had spent $50,000. Her father paid for it. She enrolled with a person who had a clinic, and he had promised that he was going to teach her iridology and that he would also apprentice her and mentor her. That alone was about $45,000 for a year-long program in which she did not learn anything, and he did not come through with his promise to mentor her and teach her. So she went to another IPA instructor and did a $5,000 course there. And she learned markings, but that teacher, when push came to shove, said, you'll figure out how to use it. And then she came to me and paid my full tuition. And, and we have worked very hard with her in the course. She's got all the nuts and bolts. She just didn't have the integration. And so we've worked hard to give her that integration so that she can feel comfortable using her iridology. And it's something that I really think is important, not just that you learn the nuts and bolts, but that you learn how to integrate it with what you do, whether that's herbology or nutrition or aromatherapy or whatever you do. If you can't integrate iridology with it easily, then you're not going to use your iridology very well, right? So the next dynamic iridology course is not starting until September 3rd. Registration is open now. The beautiful thing about getting enrolled in it now, even though it is still like near about 5.5 months off, is that you get access to our online community that is just for my students. You also get access to the mentoring sessions. You can sort of start playing with it, start hanging out with us. If you've already got iridology training, it's a nice way to kind of keep things honed while you're waiting to get into the actual coursework itself. So if you are a health professional, herbalist, nutrition coach, naturopath, chiropractor, medical doctor, RN, whatever you are, if you've got that A and P, anatomy and physiology, under your belt already, and you're interested in either learning iridology or in honing your skills, we should talk. We should talk. It breaks my heart to think that people do courses and they don't feel confident when they're done. This is 3 generations. This is interesting. This is the grandma. Notice she's got transversals and more transversals. So this is a right eye. Here's another right eye. This is grandma's daughter. Transversals in much the same area. Actually, this one and this one look almost identical. And then we've got that 3rd generation, and she's got transversals in pretty much the same area. Right? These are absolutely inherent, absolutely inherent. And we know that, right? Fiber structure is an inherited characteristic. So these are genetic. They get passed down from generation to generation. And even when we look at mom here has got transversals in at the 6 o'clock area. Child has transversals in that 6 o'clock-ish area as well, right? There's no denying that these get passed down from one generation to the next. And so that may mean that symptoms that the grandmother has, the mother might have. If the mother and the grandma have similar diets, and if they've maybe had similar lives. Now, certainly this is not accounting for the impact of emotion and trauma as well, because there might be emotional trauma that could make these symptomatic in one person, and the next person who's got these doesn't have that trauma and doesn't become symptomatic. It's many, many layers here. All right, how are we doing? What is your biggest takeaway so far about transversals? Have you had an aha moment tonight? So again, the invitation, should you think you would like to speak with me about the dynamic iridology course, if you've got your anatomy and physiology already under your belt, then I just need to make sure I didn't put a typo in there. Then there's the link in the chat box to schedule a time to chat with me, to learn more about the course and to see if it's a good fit for you. And again, enrollment for September 3rd is open now. And if you would like to get enrolled now and get this extra 5 or 6 months of support, especially if you've got a bit of iridology under your belt already, before we get into the actual course itself, what a brilliant thing to do, so that when we hit the course on September 3rd, you can just hit that floor running and be ready to take off and do amazing things with that. So with that, my friends, that's all I have for you tonight. I hope that little peek at transversals and that special category of fiber structure we call transversals, I hope it's given you something to think about, and that you can see that extra little bit of information that is sitting there waiting for you to explore it with your client when it's appropriate. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for being with me tonight. Bye for now.